keep on talking, walking on the freedom land. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around, no, turn me around. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land. Ain't gonna let discrimination turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Gonna let discrimination turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom.
And good evening. Welcome to We Believe Digital Studios and the Sizzling in Mississippi program. We are glad you're joining us tonight. Lots of heat going on down in Jackson, Mississippi today. My name is Chris Young, and as always, I'm joined by Maati. Primm, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Chris, how are you?
Very good. Bright and beautiful as always.
Thank you.
And you know, we don't even know where to get started. Today was a big day in the Chancery Court in Jackson, Mississippi, and so we really plan on trying to speak about this HB 1020 bill for the most part tonight. And there's a lot going on. There's court action in two different courts. And but before we get there, I just want to share from the Equal Justice Institute, the brainchild of attorney Brian Stevenson, puts out this calendar annually, $5 or $6 calendar that really speaks to our history. And you know, just even when we think about these two events, you know, on this date in 1916, a mob of 15,000 burns alive African-American teenager Jesse Washington in Waco, Texas. 15,000 people to burn an African-American alive. In 1970, right here in Jackson, police shot and killed two unarmed black student protesters. And you know now, Maati, one of these features of this bill, and one of the companion bills to it, is that no protesting, no gatherings, no protesting on any sidewalk or adjacent to any state building without prior permission of the two white people. Well, the Commissioner of Public Safety, Sean Tyndall, and the unelected Capitol Police Chief, Bo Lucky. So you get to go ask them in advance and get prior written approval if you want to march the streets beside that happens to be beside a Capitol building, okay, or go up on the sidewalk beside the Capitol.
Once again, black people are going to need permission to walk on sidewalks.
Yeah.
You know, because there was a time here, and it wasn't that long ago, that black people weren't allowed to share sidewalks with white people. If we encountered a white person, we as black people had to step off of the sidewalk, stand there, wait for them to pass. If it was a man, he had to tip his hat or take his hat off as the white person passed. All of this HB, I don't think it's House bill anymore. I think it stands for hate blackness.
Hate blackness. It's the perfect fit. Is Jim Crow all over again, and this is 2023, you know, and we've shared with you before, but in essence, this bill drafted by a white attorney up in Senatobia, 2.5 hours north of Jackson, who work in a white law firm. You can't see any pictures of black people when you look at the law firm that his family law firm. And he pairs up with a couple of guys from Rankin, Fred Shanks, and this other guy, Price Wallace. And they co-sponsored this bill. No consultation with the people.
Right.
And the people's representatives of the county that they're initiating law to change the way they do business.
Yeah.
And steal money from them at the same time.
As a resident of Jackson, I want to ask someone question. Who asked you?
Yeah.
Who invited you to come in and just take over and just outright steal?
And Maati, that makes me ask too. Do you think that they just decided on their own with their profound whiteness that they're going to grab the bull by the horns and they're going to fix, decades of neglect by the state? Or do you think that they're put up to that, they're pawns for other folks?
They're probably pawns for other people, but at the same time, I don't think that they really intend to fix Jackson in terms of who is actually residing in Jackson now. I think they want Jackson to look very, very different in the future. For Jackson to look like Madison and to have a different racial composition than it does now.
So in order to do that, you're going to drive people out.
Right.
Because we already know by past performance of the white people that fled,
yes,
unless black people leave, they ain't coming back.
Right.
And these people cannot abide black leadership.
No.
They find everything wrong.
Right.
They stand on high. They deprive the city of resources decade after decade after decade. And then they have the nerve to say, well, they have poor management. They find fault with the operations of the city.
Yes.
Like with the water.
Right.
I mean, now we got hundreds of millions of dollars in the coffer. We got a plan going. There's more plans being made by the initial planners, testing water lines,
right,
finding out exactly where the problems are so they can bring it totally up to speed. More money will be coming in. They wanted to get their hands on that, but then they backed off.
They had to.
But that didn't just happen.
No.
That's a systemic neglect of the infrastructure needs of the city. Well, the question, what other cities, are you aware of any other cities in the state that have been treated this way, have been neglected like this? Do they have failed water and sewer systems in other areas in Mississippi?
Well, yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, wherever there's a majority black population, there are a number of different infrastructure problems because the money isn't put into that situation, the money that should be there. Places, especially in the Delta, there's a town called Glen Allen. And the black citizens there are living in hovels and shacks, and they're paying astronomical water bills. Now, the white residents, who are the sons and daughters of the Confederacy and of former captors, the sons and daughters of captors of black people who have made their wealth on ill-gotten gains and on the backs of black people, they pay a minuscule amount for theirs. And basically what they've done is they've switched the bills so that the black people are paying what the white people should be paying in water fees and vice versa. And this is what we're dealing with here. And it doesn't get any better. It stays the same. You have a history of peonage in the Delta to this day. And in fact, there was a documentary done in the early 2000s called The Cotton Picking Truth. In this documentary, you will see residents talking, and one young lady said that her grandmother was born bonded.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, my grandmother was born in 1918. And when she was born bonded, meaning that she was enslaved from birth in 1918, not 1818.
Right.
Right?
1918. Yeah.
And which should be illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to work for free until her death. And she died in 2003. And she said that the grandchildren and children would go to visit her on this plantation where she couldn't leave. That's Mississippi today. It's Mississippi yesterday. My question is it going to be Mississippi in the future?
Yeah.
And according to people like Trey Lamar, the answer is yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and he made a big deal. That white rage came to the foreground, when he got challenged
Right.
by the Hinds County legislators during debate
Yes.
in the House. And, he said he just, he switched it to blood color. He said, he said the only color that matters, he said, I'm no racist, and the only color that matters is red, and I got it and you got it, is what he told people that were pushing back on him. But, people see that for what it is. And this governor, he's already been tweeting since this decision today. The decision today, the governor signed HB 1020 into law on April 21st. Immediately, the NAACP filed suit, and that's a federal lawsuit, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But here on the local level, a second lawsuit was filed 3 days after the governor signed this into law on behalf of Jackson residents. Their names are Ann Saunders, Sabrine Sharif, and Dorothy Triplett. I know Dorothy. I don't know the other ladies. And Mississippi Center for Justice, the ACLU of Mississippi, the MacArthur Justice Center, which, by the way, is headquartered in Chicago, and the Legal Defense Fund, all filed suit. So this Chancery Court judge, who I met one night at Howland Mal's, of all places, seemed like a nice enough guy, but and the conversation I had with him, I tried to push around the edges a little bit, see what I could find out, and I had a decent feeling from it. But anyway, he's been taking a look at this second lawsuit in the Chancery Court. He's been listening to arguments from both sides. Initially, the circuit court clerk, Zach Wallace, and the Chief Justice of the Mississippi Supreme Court were included in the lawsuit where, the plaintiff made allegations against them in an effort to cease this. But he dismissed them from the case, saying, well, they have statutory duties, so you don't want to put them in a position either they're going to fail their oath of office or they're going to break the law, something like that. So he dismissed them, but at the same time he added the state of Mississippi, which had not been added, and he added the Mississippi Attorney General. So you think, okay, well, fair enough, it's going along okay. And then he promised a decision, and sure enough, today the decision came out, and he essentially said that even though he seemed to be sympathetic about the idea that people were disappointed, that they were frustrated with this. He said disappointment and frustration with the legislative process do not create a judicial right to relief. And and that the plaintiffs did not provide enough evidence that the appointment of temporary judges, by the way, for a 4-year period of time, which lines up perfectly with the election cycle, within HB 1020 and establishment of the Capitol Complex Improvement District Court are unconstitutional beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what he ruled either yesterday or first thing this morning. I think it was yesterday, but they announced it first thing this morning. You know what I found really, really interesting, Maati? Do you remember at the end of January, they made a big deal about because this there was no forewarning about this HB 1020. They just showed up with a 1,040-page bill at the beginning of the legislative session.
Yes.
So word starts trickling out. People find out. Things get registered in the Legiscan system, and next thing you know, 16 Hinds County judges put out a one-page statement saying that appointing prosecutors and judges, appointing them versus electing them, violates Mississippi's Constitution. Well, this guy that made the ruling today was one of those judges. He had to be.
Wow.
So from January 30th to May 15th, I guess he changed his mind on that whole thing.
Change of heart.
I wonder how the other 15 feel about it today. I can't help but think that maybe this guy's looking for cover because he knows that this is a sizzling in Mississippi issue, and he knows the federal court is looking into it, so maybe he feel like he can bob and weave out of it or something.
I don't think he should have taken the case. I think he should have recused himself.
What would have happened then? Then it goes to a different judge or to a different court or
a different judge.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. So very, very interesting. I just been disappointed from the time I heard it. I just had it in my head, I guess, that what these legislators and the governor were trying to do was so unsavory, was so foul. I just had it in my head that as soon as it got in the courts, there'd be some relief. And then to hear that ruling today,
Well, it's historic because when you look at Mississippi, the way Mississippi changes is from the outside. It seems that Mississippi doesn't have enough courage within itself to do the right thing. So it always has to come this some sort of dictum from the federal government to force different, just fairness or the semblance thereof. It has to come from outside of Mississippi. I've had a number of people say to me, well, when you look at House bills and you look at the case of Rasheen Carter and other cases like him, you have to understand that it takes people coming from outside to solve it. Mississippi can't seem to correct itself.
I always want to act like nothing's happening.
Right.
While they go about the status quo.
Right.
Embedded white supremacy.
Yes. Yes.
We're starting to roll up on the end of our first segment. Just want to remind you, we do have a call-in line, 1-800-492-5186, or you can join us in the chat, and we'll check with the producer on the break and see if we got any comments coming in on the chat. But we're happy to have you join us. It's a tough topic. It really hits home here in Mississippi and in Jackson and Hinds County. Nowhere else, as backward as the state is, nowhere else in the state of Mississippi are they doing anything like this. And so, you just know that it's about the black population. 82% black Jackson, 74% black Hinds County. Everybody involved in changing all this is white people. And it's just sad. So we're going to dip out, and we'll be back with you shortly.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. Sizzling in Mississippi, Monday nights at 6:30. We're happy to have you join us. We're finding some comments here in the chat, and before I mention that, I just want to reemphasize a point that Maati was just making about, of our own volition, we don't seem to bring about forward advancement, forward-looking change in Mississippi. It takes, think about Parchman. Think about Parchman without federal intervention. Think about the farmers in the Delta without federal intervention. We have litigation still on the airport. They try to take over the Jackson Public Schools.
Think about Emmett Till. How much attention would the torture and murder of Emmett Till had if it had stayed a local issue? Right? They wanted to bury him.
Oh, yeah.
The day they found him.
Oh, yeah.
And had ordered that. But what had to happen? Emmett Till's mother and grandmother had to contact their congressman and their mayor and negotiate to get Emmett Till's body out of Mississippi.
Yeah.
And then from that point, then she could have a funeral and a wake where it was an open casket for people to see, for the nation to see, for Ebony and Jet magazine to cover, and other black newspapers around the country and the world to cover.
I just saw the movie over the weekend.
Okay, Tim.
It was free on Xfinity.
Oh, okay.
Well, for $170 a month, you get a free movie kicked in every now and then.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Tough watching a movie.
Yeah.
Take your breath away. Have you seen it?
I haven't as of yet. I have. I know people who viewed his body, who actually viewed his body back in 1955.
Wow.
And who remember what that was like and what the whole entire black population of Chicago felt, because so many of them were people who were part of the Great Migration from Mississippi specifically to Chicago. Mm-hmm. It followed the rail line. So from Mississippi, black people went to used Illinois Central and went to Chicago to live and to get out of this situation.
And I know you guys are seeing the comments already, but we're just seeing them now. Got Mr. Williams and Percy Brown watching, Mr. Norway watching. Yeah, Councilman Stokes asked for help plenty of times. Lots of other people, lots of different councilmen over the years, and former mayors. Harvey Johnson, who I spoke to on the phone a couple of months ago, shared with me so much detail about it. There's no way I could doubt that he had made a formal request and had a plan for infrastructure money. And yes, black people left over a period of time too, of course.
Right.
Mr. Williams mentioned in the street lights, the signal light's going to be out or not functioning by the downtown campaign. They go to state politicians for that, right? Somebody said, was that Ariel said that's Entergy?
Yes, it's Entergy that is in charge of fixing the lights.
Yeah.
And there's a order that has been put in, and they just haven't come and fixed them.
Yeah.
Now, that's according to someone that I know that's a producer at a news station.
Yeah. Mr. Norway says, democracy or democra-crazy?
Yeah.
And we got Mr. Malcolm Johnson, candidate for Hinds County Supervisor District 5, joining us. Glad to have you on board, Malcolm. And so, yeah, so much going on. You know, there was a statement made by Vangela Wade, who's the CEO of the Mississippi Center for Justice, that I wanted to read because, you know, she's just such an artful writer, and she conveys, you know, the essence of what's going on here. And she said that this bill 1020 is a blatant power grab to usurp democratically elected officials and a constitutional process, and would further dilute black representation and voices in Hinds County and the city of Jackson. A gross example of government overreach, an attempt to be singly focused state leadership to impose its will on a sovereign municipality and strip autonomy from Jackson and Hinds County. Should concern every one of us, she says. Every county, large or small, regardless of racial or economic makeup, across the state and across the nation. Where else is this going on? This unprecedented power grab exists only for Hinds County, majority black county with majority black electorate. She talks about the CCID sprawling now into the more white-centric areas. Not that there's not black people that don't live there, right, but everybody knows, you know. She says, notably, it appears that the new court that they're trying to install would have exclusive jurisdiction over all suits that are brought against the state of Mississippi and its agencies. And its agencies, which we know are 90% of them headed by white people.
Right.
Reducing the jurisdiction of the duly elected Justice Court, Circuit Court, and Chancery judges, as well as the DA in Hinds County, blatantly disregarding the will of Jackson and Hinds County voters. So it's just a sad, to just walk in and plant yourself there, install a new police force. Now, have you heard the buzz about there's supposedly a lot less murders going on, and they're jumping right on the bandwagon with that must be due to the Capitol Police?
No. No. And, you know, some places have been accused when their crime rates go down of simply not documenting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's the fastest and easiest way to lower your crime rate. It's just not to document it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently, WLBT, you know the guy C.J. LeMaster.
Yeah.
He's got a thing where this homicide tracker, and I think what was it? Just a few days ago, the homicide rate, when you look at this time last year, significantly lower, big percentage lower than it was. So we'll have to see how all that works. Obviously, we want that to happen.
Right.
We want there to be less murders and all.
Sure.
But to use that as a justification of what these Capitol Police are doing, I'm not sure I buy all that.
Right.
And besides, are all the murders happening in Eastover to begin with?
Right, there you go. Plus the fact there are a lot of grassroots organizing and organizations that have come into play to help reduce the crime rates here, especially the homicide rate.
Yeah.
And they're doing work. They're not being applauded for it, but they're doing the work nonetheless.
Mississippi Rapid Response Coalition does a lot of work.
Yeah.
And what are the names? The names of the guys that go out in the streets and talk to the.
Right.
There's a special name.
Right.
For them.
Now,
Danny Ivy is one of them.
Right. And Robert Davis,
Yeah.
who was head of the organization, is
100.
deceased now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's men something. I can't remember. I can't recall it right now.
Yeah. So much going on with this, and again, it just is really interesting to me that on January 30th, 16 judges in Hinds County, and we'll be interested to see. Thank you, Meredith. Better Men's Society.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. And I mean, how is it? How can you have 16 judges sign a one-page statement on January 30th saying that if you implement these things, that you're violating the Mississippi State Constitution? Now, these are judges, and yet now we got a judge today says it beyond a reasonable doubt it doesn't violate the Constitution. How exactly does that happen?
Right.
Anybody got any ideas on that? Because that really sticks out to me. I'm not sure if people remember that it was just back in January, the end of January, when all those judges made that public statement. Being still, I don't know, in my third year down here now, I got so much to learn about things. And so when I saw that, I was a little shocked. I'm like, wow, judges, boy, they are really taking a stand here.
Right.
It's not even in there, it's not like it's a case before them. It's just a concept that looks like it's coming their way and could affect them, and they all took a stand, unanimously.
Yeah.
And now this today, backpedaling.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't get it. It makes my heart hurt.
Mine too. This will happen in Mississippi.
Yeah.
You will be heartbroken.
And we said we would we said we've been talking about the second lawsuit, and so that ruling was made today by Judge J. Dwayne Thomas, and just a matter of a few hours later. And he said something, and I don't have the actual order. I have the federal one in front of me, but not the state one. But he actually said that it's appeal ready. And I thought that was that's an interesting thing to say.
Right.
That's the thing that makes me think maybe he knows the federal one is going on, so maybe he's just trying to bow out of the whole thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, I think he should have recused himself if he really felt that kind of stress.
It looked like it was starting off well, and then all of a sudden to a screeching halt. And then, but just a few hours later, this afternoon, in a joint statement from the Legal Defense Fund, ACLU of Mississippi, Mississippi Center for Justice, and the Roderick and Solange MacArthur Justice Center, issued a statement saying the plaintiffs will appeal the dismissal of the HB 1020 preliminary challenge. Plaintiffs say plain language of meaning the Mississippi Constitution supports their claims. The three Jackson, Mississippi residents, we gave you their names earlier, Ann Saunders, Sabrine Sharif, and Dorothy Triplett. are deeply disappointed by Judge Thomas's ruling and are prepared to take their fight to the Mississippi Supreme Court. They will file their notice of appeal tomorrow, and on appeal will argue the plain language of the Mississippi Constitution demands that circuit court judges be elected and does not permit for 4 judicial appointments to Hinds County Circuit Court as required by HB 1020. The plaintiffs also will challenge other rulings made in the Chancery Court, including Judge Thomas's determination that Chief Justice Michael Randolph is entitled to judicial immunity and cannot be sued in Mississippi State Court. So that's the statement put out by those 4 entities that were that filed the suit on behalf of those 3 residents.
Yes.
So here now we shift into appeal on the state case.
Right. So goes Jackson, so goes Mississippi, so goes Mississippi, so goes America. So we have to be very careful about what we tolerate in Jackson, because if we go ahead and just go with whatever flow, then Mississippi's going to be impacted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the federal case, you know, this is the first suit that was filed before the ink was dry on Governor Reeves signing into law. The NAACP filed suit seeking a restraining order to prevent House Bill 1020 from going into effect. And I have the order in front of me, and just a little backfill on it without reading the entire 4-page order. But the suit was brought by the NAACP, the national, the parent, the large group, also Jackson City branch of NAACP, Derek Johnson, Frank Figures, Charles Taylor, Mississippi NAACP head, Markel Pittman, Charles Jones, and Nashambi Lambright Haynes, who's the current president of the Jackson branch of the NAACP, versus Tate Reeves in his official capacity, Sean Tyndall, and that's this public safety commissioner, Bo Luckey, the unelected chief of Capitol Police, what they're now calling the public office of Capitol Police, Michael Randolph in his official capacity as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and Lynn Fitch in her official capacity as Attorney General for the state of Mississippi. So this is to restrain these people from bringing this into effect.
Yeah.
And that's Judge Henry T. Wingate. And talk about different hearing dates, talk about different things that have gone on and so forth, and they're looking into this. And so we don't know. You don't hear as much from the federal courts, you know, like we do in the locals. You know, they might just say, well, you know, even this Dwayne Thomas said, you know, I'll try and get an answer to you within 2 or 3 days. He said that like last Friday or something. Yeah. But you don't hear that kind of talk from federal judges.
Yeah.
So we still got that. So on the federal suit, the first suit, it's pending. It's being looked at by Judge Wingate, and on the state suit. The ruling was against the plaintiffs, against the citizens, residents of Jackson, and is now going to be under appeal effective tomorrow.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here, Maati?
Well, I think we have to address it. Each citizen of Jackson, each resident of Jackson, has to have enough courage to say, I'm not going to tolerate this, and to do grassroots protesting. Whether it's signing petitions, whether it's marching, what have you, gathering for town hall meetings, All of that. Press conferences, you name it. We need to be doing it. We need to boycott. We need to boycott different municipalities that are taking money from Jackson already, that are nearby. We also need to protest areas where these legislators live. When you get back to Senatobia, you'll find us there.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah,
Like throwback.
yeah.
But it takes a lot of will to do that.
Takes a lot. It takes a lot of organizing and will, and it takes a lot of courage.
Do you have any optimism about it? That something like that can happen?
It could happen.
It could happen. But like on a scale of 1 to 10, you've been here so much longer than me. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think?
5.
5. I like that idea of going to Senatobia. Count me in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that would be great. That would be really great. I know I've brought up the idea of prayer, which is no original idea, but put together a plan and have given it now to 3 different pastors over the course of the last year, just handing it to them about circling the Capitol in prayer, prayer warriors, just devoting an hour and a half or whatever to dedicated prayer for our city, the people that run it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody wants to pick up the ball and run with it.
Well,
Take too much work.
Yeah. They some years ago, they had a Pray for Jackson Day where people went out on different street corners, and it was largely ineffective, to be honest.
Do you think can you imagine the whole Capitol surrounded by people just praying?
Sure.
Of course, we'd have to get permission from Bo Lucky first.
Right.
In writing.
Right. I think that we would do better yelling.
Yelling.
But, yeah.
Instead of praying.
Yeah.
Well, let's do some of each.
Yeah. Well, the Bible says pray in private and then go out and do it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
Okay, well, we run up against the end of the second segment. Thank you so much for joining us and joining us in the chat. We're really glad to have you. We'll just dip out for a little bit, and we'll be back for our final segment.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
And welcome back to Sizzling in Mississippi. We're glad you're here. And I was just thinking on the break, what if we had a adopt a white person program where we could start reaching it? Because everybody says, oh yeah, no, we're not racist, or we're not, we don't care, we have blah 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 blah. But wouldn't it be something if people started showing up? Like, for example, when the NAACP goes to the Capitol,
yeah,
there's 95% black people and just a few of my kind that are part of the group.
Okay.
What is it going to take to grow those numbers? If these people really believe in fairness and equity, then they can see that this is twisted, but they're silent. So what lever could we utilize to get more these God-fearing Christian Mississippi white people to come to the aid, come to stand up for the cause, take a stand. What is that? Is that? I mean,
their ancestors would turn in their graves, and they don't mean it. I mean, they don't have they're not sincere about being against HB 1020. They're not. It behooves them to gain more power and more privilege.
Mr. Norway saying, organize, organize, organize. The forces against our interest are unified and organized. He's
they're
right
not,
on.
yeah, but they're not unified. They're in agreement.
Well, they're in agreement, but the numbers are so great that, it's like we've said, with our people don't even need to show up to work over there at the Capitol.
Right, because of the supermajority of the legislature.
And Miss McGee, who is a published author many times over, she say boycott is effective. We could start some businesses in Jackson and supporting existing businesses in Jackson.
Right.
Huh. Boycott.
Yeah.
I wonder if People's Assembly is got that on their drawing board.
I don't know. It's somewhat in legal concept, so hard to say.
You mean the boycotts?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do selective buying, which basically gives you the same effect.
All right.
Right.
Yeah. So we've just got to find a way to, I have these boards in my office where I just hang these things on a large poster boards on the wall and try to write ideas and stuff. And one of the things I just keep looking at, I wrote on there a year and a half ago or something, is what are the levers of resistance? How can what are the ways to get their attention and get, like for example, with the state flag, and I know we talked about that last week, didn't we?
We've talked about it a few times.
But the idea, and it goes back again to what you've said, it takes somebody from outside, in a manner of speaking, the SEC commissioner. Mm-hmm. Now, the SEC is a whole lot more than Mississippi.
Right.
But he weighed in, if I'm not mistaken, his name is Greg Stanky, and he weighed in and said, look, based on feedback from students, faculty, and everywhere else, there's going to be no more SEC championships in the state of Mississippi as long as that flag is flying. Boom. A year and a little bit later, a different flag.
Right.
So somebody took a stand. They found a lever. Sports in Mississippi.
Right.
We got to have our sports. We got to make our way to championships.
Right.
We got to host championships. We got to bring in that revenue.
Right. They had a hard time recruiting athletes.
Yeah.
After a while, so.
Yeah.
That was the reason for it, but the change isn't any better, but it's at least different.
It's different. It's immediately different, I think, to the eyes of a lot of people when they don't see those stars and bars.
Yeah, but then you see the white magnolia flower.
Yeah.
Which is a symbol for Confederate white womanhood.
Yeah, I remember. And I just recently got a copy of the journal of that covers all how that went down. I haven't had a chance to open it yet. I just got it a few days ago from a friend of mine, and looking forward to reading that to see what more I can learn about all that.
Yeah, I mean, they at first were pushing the Stennis flag. Remember?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And finally, someone finally said, "Well, naming a flag after the Stennis family, of which John Stennis was the patriarch, and a overt racist."
Right.
U.S. Senator from Mississippi, along with James O. Eastland.
Right.
What would be the point of changing the flag to that, even though his granddaughter was the designer, but she put on that flag the name Stennis. Mm-hmm. She's the one who named it. So it says everything about Mississippi once again. It doesn't matter. It's like the more Mississippi changes, the more it remains the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And too many people just become complicit.
Yes. Yeah, they're there. They're complicit. That's why it can remain. Yeah, some of the things done here can't be done other places.
Right.
Yeah. Wouldn't be tolerated. Are you kidding me? Yeah, no way.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any like with Rasheem Carter. I mean, when's the last time you heard about something like this in another state?
I know. Yeah. I mean, you have
Maybe
murders
Alabama.
of black people everywhere,
Yeah.
but Mississippi has a horrible method that just speaks so loudly that it makes even a listener scream. When you think about a person having their head cut off and penis severed and and stuffed in the mouth, and bits and pieces of this person, 25-year-old young man, are being found here, there, and yonder, but on the land that's owned by a relative of the local sheriff.
Right.
It's just so obvious. But we can't find anyone. It's hard to prosecute. We can't prove that this is a homicide.
And where do you hear the outrage over it? And where do you hear the top elected officials of the state condemning this behavior, getting on the news, talking to people about it?
I don't hear anybody condemning it.
Nothing.
That's here. I mean, Attorney Ben Crump.
Right. Again, outside.
There you go. Outside again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what it keeps taking.
I do want to put in a plug. Our local black congressmen and senators, and a couple, there's some white ones too that are part of the Mississippi House Democratic Caucus. They had issued a statement, and they've been consistent all along. Apparently, some in this group may have spoke to this John Lamar about this bill, but it certainly wasn't in a planning context. It was just in discussions off to the side once it got introduced. But their statement from the beginning was that HB 1020 is a racist, unconstitutional power grab. It is control of a city masquerading as concern for its citizens. And that's what the governor was doing earlier tonight, Maati, on Twitter. He was saying, we all just, whether we from here or not, we all care deeply about Jackson, and we got to face it. Jackson got a crime problem, and we got to do something about it. So that's what this is all about.
It's total garbage, and it's the same type of rhetoric that Mississippi has always used.
Yeah.
When Mississippi decided to have auction blocks, when Mississippi decided that African people who were happy in Africa somehow needed to come to Mississippi and pick 300 pounds of cotton in a day, or risk being pummeled,
right,
or whipped with a bullwhip,
or worse,
or killed, or castrated, or whatever they could think to do, feeding young black babies to alligators, using black babies as chum for king alligators in the swamps around Mississippi. Somehow they have a rationale for that. And it's the same sounding rationale, that black people need us to save them.
Right.
I'll just speak for every black person.
Don't you?
Right now.
Okay.
For the 2 billion strong, no, we don't.
Right.
When we need you, we'll call you. We have not called you.
Yeah.
And don't sit by the phone.
It's interesting, this focusing on the concern for the citizen. But look at these rankings. These and this failure to expand Medicaid. You're talking 300,000-400,000 people.
Yes.
That but we're concerned for the citizens.
Yeah, garbage. Absolute lie.
The House Democratic Caucus went on to say they assert that this bill, quote, follows a pattern we've become all too familiar with: starve a community of much-needed resources, blame black leaders for incompetence, attempt to take over.
Yep.
That's the playbook.
Bingo.
That's the playbook.
Yeah.
And it's all on record, the deprivation of the infrastructure resources for decades.
Right.
So this is where we are. So, we talk about it. We know what the problem is. We see it for what it is, but we still are lacking in, levers of resistance. How can we push back? How can we get a foothold? How can we make a change? The supermajority makes that so difficult. The mindset of people, it's like, I don't know, if I was a millionaire or something, Maati, I would hire, I don't know, the brightest mind in the world, whatever color, shape, size, gender they were, and say, how can we fix this? What would be some solutions that we can try? Because right now, what is it that we're doing in terms of solutions?
Yes.
We're relying on the court system.
Yeah.
And the court system has helped us in this journey many, many times, but not always.
But not a local court system.
Oh,
Again,
but I mean going back decades and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, when was Mississippi court systems correct?
Well, right. That's true.
Yeah, when did that happen?
That is
I didn't
true.
get the memo.
That is true.
Yeah.
Well, but we've certainly had an abundance of black attorneys over the years that have done amazing things to
Certainly.
help bring about fairness and equality.
Right.
Going out and I've heard stories firsthand, stories of going out in the middle of the night, getting black people that were jailed improperly out of jail, only to be turned around and spending the day in the courtroom the next day.
Yeah.
Just really devoted to trying to bring about justice.
Right. Yeah.
So I wish we had more solutions. I wish we had more levers to resistance, and that we could find ways to bring about change. And certainly, if anybody in the chat has got any ideas, well, boy, we are really listening.
Well, again, this is Mississippi. Mississippi doesn't want change. Mississippi will fight progress. Mississippi will remain backward, and happily so, because that's the intention, is to lord over black people, to subjugate black people. So whatever it takes, House bill after House bill,
Ms. McGee,
murder after murder.
Miss McGee say, all right, sister.
Okay.
Yeah, and Miss McGee also bringing up the point of cleaning up Jackson. I heard of something over the weekend. I don't even know where it was, but there was some group that grabbed a bunch of volunteers and did a cleanup.
Right.
You've talked about that before down on Fair Street.
Right.
And we see that more and more. We see more and more cleanup going on. Not that the behavior that's causing it has ceased, but we see more and more people that are just saying, the heck with it. We're going to spend this day, or we're going to spend this weekend. We're going to get this little acre, whatever it is, cleaned up.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is, absolutely.
It make you tolerate the potholes a little bit easier
Yeah.
when there's no trash around them.
Exactly. Right. When they're not filled with trash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one pothole that had a Christmas tree in it.
Yeah.
So.
What happens to somebody in Jackson standing out on the street corner, course, no state building nearby, but somebody standing out on the street corner with a megaphone, just talking about all this. What happens to that person, do you think?
They'll probably largely be ignored.
Ignored.
Yeah, that's all.
So they better have a lot of willpower, a lot of dedication.
Right. Yeah.
It's not something that can bring about change.
Not now.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I'd like to, we have all these zillions of organizations. You get the firm impression that good-minded people trying to do, right-minded things and all that. Sometimes I wonder if we couldn't find a way to, have some type of, I don't know, solution seekers forum or something like that,
right.
And bring, invite people. There's people that live in our community now that have seen a Mississippi far, far worse than you or I have seen, and they know some stuff, and we need to find a way to translate that wisdom from, just my opinion, from some of these older folks that I look up to so much. We got to find a way to get their voices out there, let them help us and the ones behind us come up with some solutions, find these levers of resistance.
Okay. Well, I don't have a problem with that, certainly. I think that we probably
You'd be on the panel.
Okay. I think that we should recruit people from outside Mississippi, outside of Jackson and Mississippi to mobilize.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to take all of that.
And what we think of, too, one of the things I never lose track of is this brain drain.
Right.
And you even got the state auditor, Shadrach White. Talking about it, reporting out on it.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we doing to address it? But he's not writing any reports about what we need to do to address it.
Yeah. But look at the number of people who have been leaving Mississippi for the last 100 years.
Sure.
It got so bad at one point that white men would stand at train stations and not allow black people to board their trains out of Mississippi, and black people would have to go down the train lines and hop on the trains further down where there wasn't even a stop.
He said he did an informal survey either at Mississippi State or Ole Miss, and with the hundreds of students, and asked them, you raise your hand if you plan on staying in Mississippi after you graduate.
Yeah.
And it's something like 30%.
Yeah.
Said they would consider staying.
Right. And not even all of those people are going to stay.
Sure.
Yeah.
And some of those are probably not seniors, so they got plenty of time to change their mind.
Right. There you
not
go.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you so much for hanging in there with us tonight. It's just a tough topic to talk about. Please think for yourselves about solutions, things we can do, some levers to apply resistance to bring about change, because we are, there is progress being made, but it's so painfully slow that, it's going to be generations and generations, another 1,000 years maybe before we see something that resembles equity. And we can't.
It's too long to wait.
So let's put our heads together. Let's work on it. Let's let We Believe Digital be a part of that. We can get out there in the community, take footage of things going on, talk to you, provide opportunities for you to have a platform like this show that we're doing tonight. Just give us a call if you have any questions, 1-800-492-5186. So did you have any parting comments, Maati, before we close out?
Nothing in particular, just asking people to do what you can for Jackson. When you see litter, pick it up.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, thanks again for joining us. Have a great week. Stay safe out there and take care of the people around you. We'll see you back next Monday night at 6:30.